Welcome to A Line Through Time, where I take the time to look through your favourite franchises and work out how it all lines up. Not a lot has happened with Tomb Raider since I last covered the series 3 timelines a decade ago, thanks Avengers. The most interesting thing to happen with the series is the recent announcement of a third reboot that will be amalgamating all 3 timelines into one. First, let's finish the Survivor timeline from where we left off, then discuss what we can expect to see in this new unified timeline. When I originally covered the series, Rise of the Tomb Raider had just released on PS4 for the 20th anniversary of the series. So, how did the Survivor timeline continue from there? The comics must have been doing well because Survivor's Crusade and Inferno, releasing in 2017 and 18 respectively, are the next 2 arcs released to bridge the gap between Rise and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. They depict more of Lara's war with Trinity and have basically nothing to contribute to the wider narrative. None of it gets brought up in the games. September 2018 saw the release of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the climax of the Survivor trilogy developed not by Crystal Dynamics, but Eidos Montreal. Shadow resolves Lara's conflict with Trinity, allowing her to move on to new adventures, like another version of TR1 before they removed that tease in the Day 1 patch for some reason. I guess Square didn't want to kill the hype of the next game by suggesting they were remaking TR1 again. Oh, how the turntables! The same day, Shadow of the Tomb Raider Path of the Apocalypse was released. It's a novel taking place between the Cozumel and Peru levels. It was written by S.D. Perry of the old Resident Evil novels fame, which gives me an excuse to shield this video. The series was dormant until 2023 saw the release of Tomb Raider Reloaded, a mobile puzzle game whose plot is adapted from TR1 but features Von Croy from later core entries and Anaya from Legend. It evidently occurs in its own dedicated timeline. The most noteworthy thing about the game is that you can use any of the pre-Survivor Lara voices, which is neat. That's all for pre-unified content, as everything since has been leading us into this new era. So let's discuss that, starting with the foundation of this timeline. What we know for sure is that we're kicking things off with 2 games, Legacy of Atlantis in 2026 and Catalyst in 2027. LOA is the second remake of the first game. 2026 really is the year of the remake, isn't it? Catalyst's trailer has a voiceover stating that, in addition to discovering Atlantis, Lara has survived the Devil's Triangle from 2013. In addition, developer comments have asserted that the Survivor series is this Lara's origin story, and that Catalyst is set years after the events of Underworld. This is how we know this is an amalgamation of the 3. The full Survivor trilogy, Underworld from the Legend timeline, and a new version of TR1 will together set the stage for all 3 timelines to be pulled from. Some fans believe the new games are actually just sequels to the Survivor games with new takes on classic entries occurring in the intervening years. I mean, the original ending to Shadow had Lara receive a letter from Natla to set up her own version of the Atlantis adventure, but the thing is, even the Survivor games are not occurring unaltered here. Tomb Raider Sacred Artifacts is a comic that began in January 2026 and is our first proper glimpse into the grander picture of this new era. First, it takes place after Underworld, with Lara being said to be making her first public appearance in 14 months, so it's likely set 14 months after Underworld. Lara has her necklace from the Survivor games here, suggesting this doesn't occur in the original Legend timeline, only the unified one. The depression Lara suffers between Underworld and Sacred Artifacts, while she presents it publicly as a response to Croft Manor being burned down, is clearly actually in response to the reveals of Richard and Amelia's fates, which don't align at all with the Survivor continuity, where their fates were known long before any of Lara's adventures. I'll get more into that in a bit. Sacred Artifacts also sets up Carter from Temple of Osiris to return in the second issue, and is about a sister dagger to TR2's Dagger of Xi'an, with the Fiamma Nera from that game also being referenced as being unheard of for years. I'm looking forward to what other hints the comic drops about what is now considered canon as it goes. So, from this alone, we understand this timeline to include the Survivor trilogy, Legacy of Atlantis, TR2, Underworld and by extension Legend, and most likely Temple of Osiris, all leading into Sacred Artifacts and Catalyst. I previously concluded Temple of Osiris to occur after Underworld, once all of Lara's unfinished business was concluded, but in this timeline it may occur before Legend. Outside the media itself, official word on the upcoming Tomb Raider Amazon Prime live-action series suggests it shares continuity with the upcoming games. The animated Netflix series Tomb Raider The Legend of Lara Croft might be part of this too, given both are produced by Legendary Television, both are seeing release in proximity to the new games, and what seems to be a notable continuity issue between the show and the Survivor games it's supposed to be a sequel to. If the Survivor games are the new Lara's origin, and the show transitions its Lara from her Survivor to classic form, it would be strange to disregard the show going forward, especially since, from what I can tell, the show was pretty popular. The Amazon show remains sparse on details, but Netflix bridges the gap between the Survivor and Classic eras, and the comic does the same for the Legend and New eras, so Amazon could aim to do the same for Classic and Legend, given her use of the Classic outfit. Or maybe they'll want to focus on more relevant stories and bridge the same gap as the comic. Everything being canon to some degree would explain the recent push to get every mainline entry available on modern systems over the last 2 years. The 2 remaster collections that brought the entire core oeuvre to modern systems, the Lara Croft duology being ported to Switch, and the PS2 classic releases of Legend and Anniversary, with Underworld likely to follow this year. I'm guessing we'll get PS5 and Xbox Series ports of the Survivor games for the Anniversary year, and then hopefully a Legend trilogy remaster that preserves the otherwise 360 exclusive Underworld DLC next year. I doubt the Legend trilogy is coming this year because that would mean 2 versions of TR1 releasing in 1 year, and it's easy to see how that could be seen as the series competing with itself. As for the order of events, I imagine from the placement of past Atlantis adventures in their respective timelines, it will go like this: 2013, Rise, Shadow, Legend of Lara Croft, Legacy of Atlantis, Tomb Raider 2, 3, Last Revelation, Chronicles, Angel of Darkness, Legend, Underworld, Temple of Osiris, possibly shifted by Sacred Artifacts, and then Catalyst. Ideally, other side material like Guardian of Light will be included, but I don't necessarily expect it to. For time frame, the Netflix show opens on a flashback to before Yamatai, before flashing forward 3 years to after Shadow has occurred. It depicts Lara with her adventurous and quippy classic personality even back then, albeit with a fair amount of the vulnerability of the Survivor version, suggesting she was like this to some extent even during the Survivor era. As for the shape of this continuity, with how different Laras have different backstories, I'm expecting Amelia's history to be taken from Legend, since that's integral to Lara's motivation there, and unimportant to the other timelines, while Richard will follow his Survivor counterpart's journey and will become embroiled with Trinity while seeking answers surrounding Amelia's disappearance, and then be killed by them, as explained in the Netflix show. The game most impacted by this fusion will therefore be Underworld, as Richard can only be killed by Natla if they decide to tie her and Trinity together in LOA. One thing is for sure, many previous entries cannot work unchanged in this setting. I believe 2, 3 and Angel of Darkness can, but I think that's it. 2013's Innocent Girl Lara is at odds with the Netflix show opening with Lara being basically fully capable in a flashback that features Roth, who later dies on Yamatai. Rise and Shadow both acknowledge that Amelia died after her plane crash, which doesn't work with Legend canon since her body was found in Survivor, and Chronicles even depicts her parents alive long after the Survivor trilogy would have ended. Last Revelation and Chronicles both depict adventures Lara had when she was a teen, which would lessen the impact of Yamatai if she's already had these adventures. Likewise, Legend's flashback to Lara's past will be tricky to fit in since it either occurs before Yamatai, which doesn't make sense, after Yamatai but before Rise despite being unmentioned, or it's after the entire Survivor series, and Lara's lack of preparedness makes no sense. Maybe the Roth flashback in Netflix is priming us for a Lara who had these adventures in her youth prior to Yamatai, where she would have a very different response to everything going on than we actually saw in 2013. Temple of Osiris depicts Legend Lara's first encounter with Set, while it would be her second in a unified timeline. Lara is unlikely to doubt the Arthurian myth in Legend if she's already experienced 9 games and several other media stories worth of supernatural occurrences beforehand. The Underworld revelations can work if Natla is connected to Trinity, almost positioning LOA as an epilogue to the Trinity feud, but it's difficult to have the revelation in LOA without having Lara learn it here long before Underworld. Zip's relatively simple style of dress in the games clashes with his more eccentric taste in Netflix. And of course, the time frame of everything aside from Survivor would need to change. Games set in the 90s or aughts are now set in the 10s or 20s with the advancements of technology such as smartphones. Oh, and imagine if they revived the unused alternate ending to Underworld where Lara leaves Amanda to die in the cold because this Lara's been through a lot worse than Legend Lara. I expect we'll have a bit more of an idea how all of this works via Croft Manor levels in LOA and Catalyst, since those often include artifacts from past adventures, so they can use that space to confirm past entries' timeline placements. That's everything we currently know about this bold new direction for the series. Only one other thing needs mentioning, and it's pretty minor. Tomb Raider: The Crypt of Kronos is an in-production board game funded on Kickstarter in May 2025. It features a story about Lara exploring the island of Kairos in search of an artifact that can manipulate time. Based on Lara's design and her pose for the miniature coming directly from LOA, it's clearly set in that timeline. When about is hard to say unless the game comes with a narrative booklet. It may not even be canon, but the Crystal Dynamics logo being on the cover and the big multimedia push make me think it very well could be. The villains are Natla Tech after Lara already beat their boss, so it's after LOA. Other outfits are available as cards, which could suggest she's gotten those outfits, but I don't think that's hard evidence. From the main design, I'd place it shortly after LOA. And that is where Tomb Raider currently stands in terms of timelines. A new era that fuses at least the broad strokes of the 3 prior continuities into one stands before us, with the many contradictions between them needing explanations by the time credits roll on Catalyst next year. At the very least, they have been making as much of the franchise as possible readily available in some form on modern systems, so even if this new direction doesn't work as hoped, we still have those available, which is a lot better than you can say for many other franchises that insist on the importance of continuity while also ignoring the back catalogue. I may be discussing a few of those on this show later this year as well. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? You get early access to new videos for just $1 a month. If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is Unified Lara Can't Exist by Webster Likes Games. The video goes over some of the specifics for why the unified concept is going to be difficult to implement.